Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of 365 Days of Gaming. Appreciate you taking our time to check out the video. You already know what to do. Much appreciated in advance. Now, during the late 90s, right, I didn't get a Nintendo 64, which means I did not have access to games like Legend of Zelda and Mario just on hand. Like, I ended up playing these games at friends' houses, right, but I didn't have access to it on my own because I had a PlayStation for multiple reasons. So one of the games that I, didn't have access to on the normal was Legend of Zelda. But the PlayStation had their own adventure game that in some ways was better than Legend of Zelda because it did a lot of things that that game didn't do. And I want to give some praise and shout out to that game, and that's called Brave Fencer Musashi. Now, first and foremost, shout out to Keith for introducing the game as he is one to do, especially during that time. Keith was the man to see if you wanted to know what was hot on the PlayStation, just let me say. And so he shows me this game and he's like, yo, it's like Legend of Zelda, but you play the samurai. Your name's Musashi. You've been brought, to a certain time period. You've been summoned to save this village, this place, right? And I don't want to go into a lot of it because I really want you all to play this game. If you have not played it, there's certainly a couple of ways you can play it. I believe it's on the PlayStation Store, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they did anything for the PC, but also I know you guys got ways of making things happen if you want to. But this is one of my favorite PlayStation games, right? It's got all the great things about the action adventure games, right? The controls are, especially for its time, pretty decent. No tank controllers, which was very standard on the PlayStation, so it's much more improved to see the free flowing kind of directional input type of things with the movement on there. You got two weapons. You got your fusion weapon, which is your fusion blade, and then you have the Lumina weapon, which is like the legendary sword that you have to get the 5 scrolls and power up and do all these things, right? So just off rip, you can use the fusion to still move some different enemies. You hit them with it, you suck them up, kind of like Kirby, but except for you kind of drain them of their energy versus eating them, and then you get an ability that you get to use. And sometimes you have to get abilities to get through areas. Sometimes it's just cool stuff to take, and just to have on your character for that area. So I thought that was like super cool when I played it, and I haven't really seen a lot of games do a lot with that type of ability, assuming, except for like obviously Mega Man and stuff like that. But especially during that time, it was very, very new and different, and the way you got the abilities I thought was really cool. Then on top of that, as you progress through the game, it not only turns from like your standard action adventure, but it has this like city building aspect to it because you have to rescue all the inhabitants of the town and the castle, and when you do that, they unlock certain things, and not all of them are required in order to progress through the game. So there are some optional things that you can do and items that you can get by just trying to get back all the citizens of the town. You're going to go through different towers based on elements, so it's definitely got some influence from Legend of Zelda. Like I said, this wasn't necessarily like the Zelda killer. Let's not be crazy here, right? But if you had a PlayStation and you didn't have access to a 64 to play like Ocarina of Time, right? You had a chance to play something that would, kind of scratch that itch. Maybe not 110%, but very close, right? It's a very solid game. It's made by Squaresoft, and, just to kind of give you an idea what was happening during that time, Squaresoft was killing it, right? This is where Squaresoft is on just an unprecedented run, where pretty much if they made it, it was at least solid, if not really good. And this game to me is really good. Never played the sequel that was on the PS2, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, man. That character design kind of threw me off, and then by then I was playing so many other things I just never got around to it. Might do it one day. Might let you know if I did and what I think about it. But back to Musashi. Another cool thing is like a lot of this game is voice acted, and again, I know that doesn't mean a lot to some of the more purist of gamers, but for people who don't want to read, man, it's a benefit, and the voices are pretty good. The characters look pretty good for the time. It definitely meets the can we tell what's going on visually. You certainly can. There's some really cool sequences in the game. There's some very interesting characters. I won't say too much, but I mean, just showing you the beginning of the game, you can see how much personality this game has. And that's always a bonus when we talk about games of that time, right? Is them having a certain level of personality. There's definitely some puzzle aspects to it. If you're watching the video, you'll notice that I had a little trouble trying to get this old puzzle that I used to be able to do in my sleep out. But, that comes with age and time and forgetting things. But the answers are always around you. Very similar to Legend of Zelda, right? The answers are always there. You just got to figure out exactly what it wants you to do. And it's never too tough. Just takes a couple of trial and error, use your environment type things. The combat itself isn't too incredibly hard. There are some tough spots in the game, but for the most part, if you just, advance through the story and kind of pay attention to what it's telling you to do, you really shouldn't have too much trouble in the game. It's not one of the more difficult games, and I always think that's a plus, because unless I'm trying to play something that's like Dark Souls or something, I don't really need the game to be unnecessarily hard. You can challenge me, but if you're just trying to make the game hard for the sake of being hard, it's kind of a wash to me. Then, as you progress and you get different abilities and spells, you get different attacks, you got charge up moves, just a lot of little different things to keep the game fresh the entire time you're playing. Like I said, a lot of charm in the characters that you come across, and even the main character itself. This is before Link had any personality, right? So this was the main character showing, his personality and his different sides, and him getting upset and all these other things where you feel like when you're playing Legend of Zelda, at least back in the day, you kind of had to emote a little bit for Link because he just wouldn't show you much. Now, if you've heard of this game, what are your thoughts on it? Where do you rank it as far as action adventure games? Do you think it's up there with some of the greats, like I do personally? Or do you feel like there's certain things that have missed the mark? Either way, always love to hear from you. Really appreciate y'all, giving me some feedback. And also appreciate the suggestions. I've seen a couple of suggestions in the comments, and they might make the cut. I'm never gonna say never. So always let me know what you think you'd like to see here. If you just feel like some games deserve some praise that you haven't really heard people talk about, that's what this whole series is about. So as always, appreciate you checking out the video. Y'all stay safe, have fun. Peace.